Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. It is October 14th, 2015. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. Today on the show, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Ylara Khalsa. I believe that is her in the queue there, area code 415. I will ask her to clarify the pronunciation of her name when I get her on, after I do the news segment, of course. She is a holistic healer destined to activate plants, animals, and humans. She is also a Kundalini Yoga Instructor, nutritional educator, clinical Aromatherapist, international teacher, Beekeeper, and Biodynamic Farmer. Spent over 20 years learning personally from Yogi Bhajan, ancient healing technology like Sat Nam Rasayan, chakra activation, and was blessed to receive information directly from Yogi Bhajan. We're going to talk all about her work. I'll be using her website as a guide throughout this show. I believe it was at the Mount Shasta conference in California that I met her, and I'm guessing it was her from which I borrowed a small sample of that headache remedy thing that you were supposed to rub on your temple to cleanse the body of negative energies that could cause headaches. Ylara, if that was you, clarify that when I get you on. But before I get you on, though, of course, I'm going to start with the news, courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. First article, Indiana Sheriff to Obama. I will disregard executive order calling for gun confiscation. Quote, I will not allow gun confiscation in my county. You go, Sheriff. Yes, the Sheriff, people, has the authority to kick the federal government out of the states if the federal government decides to infringe its authority illegally upon the several states and the people of the several states. And, of course, we do not want our government to take our guns because, well, for one, they staged Sandy Hook to justify taking our guns, and if they take our guns, they take away everything else. Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment in the Constitution so we could protect ourselves from tyrannical government. So whoever this Indiana sheriff is, you demand. Next article, MTV. You're sexist if you hate selfies. Selfie shaming, so to speak, fuels misogyny, former music channel claims. Well, this is all just another nanny state thing to make people feel like they should be put down and feel like they are worthless if they say terms like selfies, and using terms like selfies and whatever the term is actually supposed to mean. I don't think the people that say it's sexist know exactly what selfies means anyway. I could be wrong. Maybe they do know what it means. But this is but MTV, no surprise that they would try to brainwash you. A lot of MTV brainwashing, a lot of those music videos and all have a lot of subliminal Illuminati stuff in them. Next article, Democrat calls out politicians with armed guards, defends Second Amendment at debate. Quote, there are people at high levels in this government who have bodyguards 24 hours a day, says Jim Webb. I already talked about how the Second Amendment is important, so thank you for making note of this politicians with armed guards fact. Next article, new airline to fly migrants directly into Sweden. Flights normally reserved for tourists to be repurposed. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, these migrants need to be saved because they're living in dangerous hostile territory. But then again, they're bringing these migrants into European countries and into America too to screw us over and take our jobs. And people need to be aware that there is a conspiracy. So it's not a bad idea to have these illegal immigrants go through some sort of a process to make them legal immigrants. Next article, EU diplomat. My government, quote, believes Obama is quite mentally unwell. A former NSA analyst says senior European official asked him how U.S. president could be impeached. Well, I don't blame you, European official, for asking that, and I don't blame the government for believing Obama is mentally unwell. I mean, he's mentally unwell because he's a puppet to powers that be, Illuminati bloodlines who want global totalitarian government, and he takes orders from them. And they probably told Obama, you're going to do what we say or we're going to murder Michelle and your children. Is that understood? And we're going to murder you too. So you can't help but feel sorry for Obama, but then again, I can't blame you if you hate him. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. All right, next article. GOP candidates. Democratic debate was all about who wants to give away the most free stuff. The answer to every problem in America is a government program and a tax increase. Yes, the only way to get anything done was through bribery and raising taxes in ancient Rome, and this is no different because America is the Roman Empire of the modern era. And yes, the Democratic debate was probably all about who wants to give the most free stuff. Well, it probably wasn't all about that. I didn't watch. I'm not watching any of these debates. And I would prefer to see a third-party candidate be the American president, and I'd rather see a president who understands that the president's job is nothing more than to act as the quarterback, so to speak, for the Congress and the rest of the government to call the plays and decide this is the best way to go, this is the best way to go, while Congress all along has the authority to decide whether or not the president's move is good or bad and should be followed or should not be followed. And please understand the federal government does not have authority to pass laws that affect the common people of the several states. The only authority the federal government of the United States has is to exert by any force to protect the rights and property of everyone under the auspices of that government, and that one and only reason government was created must be exercised within the confines of the 18 enumerated powers in the federal Constitution. Okay, next article. America number one, question mark. That's a question. America number one. 36 facts that prove that the United States is a, quote, exceptional, unquote, nation. Now that it is election season, we have all sorts of politicians running around proclaiming that America is the greatest nation on the entire planet. What do we mean by greatest nation? Well, it's certainly not the freest nation. It may be one of the most lawless nations, if not the lawless. It's definitely one of the top three. And but Jordan Maxwell says it is the most lawless nation on earth. And he to justify that, he said, you go to court. Your Honor, the law says, no. This is my court. I decide. No, Your Honor, you're my servant. No. This is my court. I act like the boss. But the law says, right. No. That's not the way it's going to work in my court. Yeah, that's what Jordan Maxwell says. The way the judges handle courts means it's the most lawless nation on earth. But that's just one example. There's other examples he would probably have to give besides a judge's bad attitude. So, all right, one more article here, and then we're moving on to the guest. Last article, Donald Trump dominates discussion of Democrats' boring debate, boring in quotes, on Twitter and Facebook. Putin is not feeling too nervous or scared. Yes, Putin, he is also a puppet of the globalists, just like the Democrats and Republicans in America are puppets of the globalists. But there is Putin is trying to revolt at the same time. So the powers that be, they seem to like Putin's arrogant attitude. But then again, he has made it clear, I don't want to have anything to do with my masters. Well, we really know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, they say Russia is not our ally, but how could they not be our ally when they're both controlled by the same powers that be? It's there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes there. You're not going to find out the truth from watching Russia Today. I mean, actually, it's not Russia Today anymore. They just call it RT. It's a love 'em, hate 'em mainstream news organization. It is state funded by Putin and his cronies in the Russian government, so they would say things that are going to reflect badly upon America, but they're just doing that to create division, and they are going to say things that's going to make the Russian government look good when the Russian government certainly is doing a lot of things that are up to no good. But at the same time, I mean, we're talking all about this BRICS nation stuff with these nations that want to dump the dollar and start a new currency and help us get more, well, I don't know about help us get more free, but that's wishful thinking. Let's just hope we are on a positive timeline, no question. We just got to do our part to help it work out. And I got a guest on the show tonight that's certainly going to do a lot to make sure that that positive timeline works out well. A lot of positive things on our website. I'll be using it as a guide. Oh, I see Sean going in the chat room. How you doing? I knew you'd be there. You're always there. Only two other guests besides that. None of them can talk though because they're not actually don't have a blog account. They're just listening. But enough of that. I've babbled long enough. Let's get the guest on. Area code 415. Is this my guest, Ylara?
Hello, yes, this is Ylara.
Ylara, and your last name is pronounced how?
Khalsa.
Ylara Khalsa. Okay, I didn't get the first name right, but I got the last name right. All right. Well, you are a polymath of sorts: Kundalini Yoga Instructor, nutritional educator, clinical aromatherapist, and all the other things. By the way, just so I know, were you the person at the Mount Shasta conference who gave me that headache thing that you rub on your temple to neutralize the headache pains? Was that you?
That was me.
That was you. Okay. Yes. Well, I'm glad I got your card. I'm glad I got you on my show today. Whenever I go to a conference, I always not only try to get the speakers on, but the vendors on. The vendors seem to have a less of a household name around society than the speakers, but it's amazing what kind of valuable information the vendors can get out. So definitely want to talk to the vendors. Definitely glad I got you to come on. And I don't know, there's so many things to talk about. I'd like I told you when you emailed me what kind of questions you're going to ask me, well, I said I'd like to ad-lib. And looking at your thing here, I think we'll start, maybe try to go with the best for last stuff. But this is interesting. By the way, one more call. Someone in the queue, area code 563. If you want to call in to talk to the guest, I'm going to be taking questions in an hour and 5 minutes at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. That's the earliest I'll be taking questions. But if you're calling in to just listen, well, I'm sure you're in for a great show. And that goes for any other caller. If anybody wants to call in number 646-478-4747. Again, that's 646-478-4747. So I guess the first thing that you do that is worth talking about, Beekeeper. How interesting. Bees. Now, a lot of people worry about the bees because the bee population on planet Earth is decreasing. I do sign a lot of petitions and such on the internet, get a lot of petitions through the mail, and a lot of the petitions I get seem to be about saving the bees, asking politicians to save the bees and make sure that things that harm the bees cannot get into the environment to kill the bees off. I mean, the bees do a lot of good things for us. So I guess with this subject, what's your general take? How much does it concern you about the fact that bee populations are decreasing? And then after that, let's take a more positive tone about this by talking about the specific work that you do as a beekeeper and why you do what you do in regards to it.
Sure. I'm glad that you wanted to start with this topic. Is one that is very dear to my heart. Yes, you're right. The bees are dying, and it is it's like a tipping point of sorts with these little humble creatures. Most of our food supply, I would say, probably about more than half of it that we enjoy and consume is due to the pollination of the honeybee. And without them, we wouldn't have fruits, nuts, and many other vegetables and fruits. They are an important creature for us here on this planet. It wasn't until probably a few years ago that people started taking notice of the devastation that was going on. I would say that at approximately some sort of rate, the bees do die off here and there, but not at the rate that they have been doing, and increasingly more so in the last 2 years, where we have almost a 40% mortality rate, which has never been seen before. That means that soon enough we won't have them. And it's caused a tremendous amount of concern among the beekeepers and among farmers as well. And just to put this in perspective, China, for example, doesn't have any more honeybees. And if they do, they're very, very small populations. And so sometimes you can actually see on Facebook or on Google, if you do that, pictures of actually farmers and laborers hand pollinating trees because there is no honeybees there. And I can only assume, really, this is an assumption, that it is the fact that probably China is one of the most polluted cities in the world, with very little awareness and consciousness as to honoring nature and its people. And again, this is my personal assumption based on what I read. So yes, the honeybees are dying now. You would say, well, why are they dying now? And it's become now very well known that there's the chemicals, the pesticides, the fungicides, the herbicides, a very deadly cocktail of all these chemicals that are being sprayed and mass produced here and everywhere. The bees travel up to 200 miles to actually gather pollen and nectar from flowers, and they go everywhere. You cannot just keep the bees in your little organic farm. They can go far and bring back with them, the pesticides that are in the pollen, in the nectar. And that's caused a tremendous amount of neurological problems for them, as well as compromising their immune system. Now, add to that a while ago, we imported bees from China, and the bees that came from China had something that we've never seen here in the States, which is called the varroa mite. It is a little parasite that lives off the honeybee. And so it is devastating. It devastates, many colonies. It's passed down. So here you have really pretty much an incredible battle this creature is actually fighting. It has the varroa mite, and it has this deadly cocktail of pesticides that is killing them. And so they really don't have the champions that can help them. I mean, it is us, after all, that we are creating the demise of the honeybee by the choices that we make, each of us. You don't like the weeds in your garden. Most everyone out there that doesn't have an awareness, doesn't want to have an awareness by now, goes and buys, Roundup, or some kind of herbicide. And then you spray it so that your lawn looks green and pretty. Little do you realize that not only are you poisoning yourself, which now is a very well-known fact, that stuff affects the kidneys of those who live within, a few feet of that pesticide, but it actually kills all of the pollinators, not just the honeybee, the butterflies, the birds. So the choices we make are definitely, resulting in what we're seeing now. The honeybee is a creature of the sun. It gathers pollen, it gathers nectar. It is an incredibly social creature, one that could potentially give us a capacity to understand how a society that lives for each other works. Here you have the worker bees, here you have the drones, which are the males, and you have one queen for each colony. The queen goes on a nuptial, flight. It mates with thousands of male drones from all over at a humongously high altitude, comes back and starts to lay eggs for the rest of her life. And most of the worker bees are females. They are the daughters of the queens. And so you have this colony that lives for each other. The consciousness of this creature is that it lives for each other. They are completely interconnected. They know that they depend on each other to survive. So, there is quite a bit to learn from the way the consciousness of this little insect works, and something to strive for in our society today. So yes, going back to the mortality rate, they are dying, at a very, very high rate. I am the head of the Bee Guild here in Mount Shasta, which is a community of people that have come and formed, a connection to help the honeybee, not because we want the honey, but because we are being called to do something to help them thrive or survive. And in that, I put in and asked if we could all come together as a Bee Guild to offer free classes for anyone who wanted to learn beekeeping. This is not a business anymore. We are at a tipping point. You cannot make money from this. So we are offering the services of, people who know how to work with bees, people who want to know how to work with bees. And we mentor them. We mentor them for a year until they feel like they can do it themselves. And this is one of the services that I have felt so propelled to offer, because we are at that tipping point. We need the backyard gardener to get the box of bees, to learn to relate to the species, to learn what they do. and to be able to like bring back that balance. And it's at that desperate moment that I invite anyone who's hearing this to consider it. There are some legalities if you live within the city, but now more than ever, the rooftops have become a very popular place for people to come and keep peace in city settings. I mean, the unthinkable is happening. So don't be, disappointed, and don't be put off by some of the laws in regards to beekeeping or having beehives in the city setting. Find people who are already doing it, and just get familiar with what you can do. I really, really invite everyone who's listening to just go for it. Many people, it's interesting, I travel a lot because of my business, and so I meet a lot of people from diverse backgrounds and belief systems, and what I continue to hear more often than not is that people are being called to be more part of nature. They're being called to go out there and take the walk or do something. There's that desperate knowing and need in the consciousness, in the soul, in the heart, that something needs to happen. And so they just don't know what, but they feel this urgent anxiety to do something about it. And this actually takes me to, you can keep bees. It's not that difficult. Yeah, they sting, but they're not aggressive by nature. That's another myth that I'd like to debunk. Bees don't go out there to sting. They're not aggressive, actually, at all. And it is that when you feel afraid, when you feel nervous, they sense that, and they sense that as aggression. So they are on the lookout. If you know how to behave around bees, it's one of the most sublime experiences one can experience. Is incredibly calming and meditative, and it just really brings you to a different level of consciousness. There's many books out there that talk about the spiritual life of bees. The way there's a shamanic book, The Way of the Bee, and it really talks about different ways of relating and the things that were going on long ago that are coming back. So there is much to be rewarded from them. They not only pollinate our food and allow us to enjoy that fruit, those vegetables, but they actually give us honey, which is antibacterial, antifungal. It heals wounds, it keeps our immunity. But they also give us the beeswax. Beeswax allows us to have those delicious, beeswax candles that emit the negative ions that allow for a positive mood. And, seeing more on that spiritual level, beeswax is that sunlight. In order for a bee to actually make beeswax, to gather the sunlight, and they sweat. Out of their sweat glands that comes the wax. So when you're melting, when you're burning those beautiful candles, say in the wintertime, when the light, gets shorter and the dark is longer, you are being reminded, very lovingly that the sun, the light is coming, as that beeswax melts, you are receiving that trapped sunlight in the wax out into your space. So they are so generous in what they give us, and I think that we can only just spread the awareness of this so we can keep them in our prayers and choose to do something that will help them. Again, your choices are what is going to make them, survive. What are you choosing to support with your hard-earned money? Support the farmer that keeps bees. Support the stores that do not sell herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. Talk to your neighbor. Ask them if they could switch if you see them using them. Bring some kind of conversation in a peaceful and neighborly manner. And I think it is through community efforts and through, each one of us, we can make a tremendous difference, to help them thrive. We go hand in hand. So many people talk about this. We go hand in hand in our survival with the honeybee. If they go, I think, who was it? This Albert Einstein said, when the honeybee goes, not soon after, we'll probably be joining them. And I don't like to be the gloom and doom person, but, I say, it says a lot. It is an opportunity for us to grow and really come together to make a positive change for all of us.
Yes, and which honey of all the bee honeys that there are that you see in the store, and also cinnamon and honey is also a great combination, they say, for a lot of things. But for people that don't know, because they look at the different types of honey in the store, different kind of plants, bee pollen plants that it comes from, which one do you recommend, or is there really like no one that's better than the other? It's just if you have this kind of ailments, you want this. If you have that problem, you want that. Can you enlighten us on the different types of honeys and what they do?
Sure. Not long ago, I read this article that actually went public, and it was very commercial, where there was a company that tested all of the commercial honeys out in the shelves of regular stores and health food stores. And what they found was rather shocking. When you are seeing a commercial glass or jar of honey, probably 80% of the time it will not be real honey. Most of the commercial honey has been heated. When you do that to the honey, it loses all of its capacities to give you immunity, and strengthen your immune system. And not only that, because there's a tremendous loss in the bee community and bee colonies, most honey, it isn't really honey. It has corn syrup. So before you buy, always read the ingredients. Don't assume that because it says honey, it really is actually honey. If it has sugar, most likely not, it's not honey. So I always endorse raw honey because it hasn't been put through any process. It's out of the frames, it goes into a extractor, and then it goes into a jar, and you're getting what the bees are producing naturally. So you want to go for what it says raw honey. And if you're going to choose a honey in your local stores, wherever you are, please look for a local farmer. More times than not, you'll find them at the farmers market. You find them at local events in your community. Make the effort to support a beekeeper. Make an effort to support a local farmer that keeps bees, because it makes a big difference to them, for you to buy it directly from them. It could be the difference between paying the gas bill or the electric bill or buying wood for the winter for a farmer when you go directly to them. And they are the people that we really need to support, because at the end of this whole story we are living in this planetary evolution, it is really going to be them and the backyard grower that's going to produce the best food to support your local communities. So I would say go to the farmer's market on the Saturdays or Sundays, or ask a friend to grab you a jar if they do go, but support them directly. Anything that doesn't say raw honey, it probably contains something else, and there's no health benefits in that I may be aware of. Again, this is from my personal perspective. So there are honeys, and there's a lot of beekeepers that take their bees to different areas, different forests, different fields, that may have the club honey, or they may have like conifer honey. There may be, the apple blossoms or, orange blossoms. And so that will be really up to the person and their taste, preferences. However, one of the biggest concerns that I have, being a biodynamic farmer and also being hands-on on my land, as well as my bees and my plants and everything that I grow, is that a lot of commercial beekeepers make their money through the year by traveling with the bees and taking them to the almond trees, to all their big farming operations that do not keep bees themselves, so that their fields can be pollinated. Now, I have friends who are commercial beekeepers around in the area that do this, and again, they make most of their money in that because they get paid by the frame, of the honey of their boxes. But many of them are choosing not to do this anymore, because it was very common that they will spray the almonds, they will spray their fields with pesticides right before they would bring the honeybees to actually pollinate the fields. So you are also, needing to understand that if your beekeeper does this, you are also bringing in honey that has pesticides in it. The pesticides affect the biology of the bee, and thus it affects everything the bee actually creates. So you're going to try to look for someone that doesn't do that, that is local, and that, is organic or biodynamic or wildcrafts. So this is just another note for those people who have an immune system that has been compromised or, would like to feed it to their children, whose immune system is just beginning to develop. Or for those who really don't want to take pesticides in at all. So, these are questions that one must ask when you go to buy whatever it is that is going to give you nutrition. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, my God, the stupid mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, stupid mute button's taken forever to unload. This has happened the past two shows. Hopefully it won't happen again. Okay, but for those that don't know the definition of biodynamic, what's the difference between a run-of-the-mill farmer and a biodynamic farmer?
Right. A run-of-the-mill farmer is someone that farms what I would call commercially. Commercial farming, uses a monocrop, meaning they plant over and over the same thing on the field without letting the soil rest or replenish its mineral contents. And so they exhaust the soil. Because they exhaust the soil, whatever is planted will end up having issues with the immune system. The plant has an immune system as well. So most of the times when a plant has a weakened immune system because it's not getting all of the nutrients that it needs to produce healthy fruit or healthy vegetables or whatever it is that you're planting, most times than not, you will see a lot of pests on the weak plants. So a farmer whose livelihood depends on the yield of whatever it is that they're growing can't afford to let that plant develop that weak system. So instead of healing the soil, they end up using pesticides. So they spray the plant at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, through the different stages so that there's no pests that will actually take the yield that they make their livelihood from. And so many people used to say that the pesticides they spray at a certain point or a certain stage that doesn't actually go into the fruit or the vegetable that you're eating, but that's actually not true. They have found that the pesticide even carries onto the seed for the next crop. So you're carrying in a factor in that seed, which already is contaminated. So that's most what commercial agriculture is. Biodynamic agriculture is actually nothing new. It is not a fancy term to say I'm better than you. Biodynamic agriculture is actually how our great-great-grandfathers used to farm. They used to farm according to the constellations. Biodynamic farming has a planetary calendar, and it was actually found out that when the constellation is in Taurus, it benefits the root. When the constellations are in this other planet, it benefits the root, the leaf, the fruit, the seed. And so when you plant according to that and you harvest according to that, then you are actually harvesting a plant that contains most of its nutrition. All of its therapeutic properties are in the plant at the time of harvest. The size of a biodynamic, squash versus a commercial squash is also tremendously different. It's bigger, it's healthier. Biodynamic agriculture, not only do you plan according to the planetary constellations to benefit that which you are wanting to harvest, but you also create these preparations, sort of a homeopathic remedy to bring more forces into the soil. So you're bringing more minerals, so the soil is healthy. Biodynamic agriculture doesn't see the farm as I'm only an orchard of peaches. I'm only going to grow peaches. I'm not going to have any kind of other animal. I have a dog, but, and I'm bringing my fertilizer. I may do my compost, but, I am bringing more fertilizer from outside sources because I don't create my own because I don't have animals that give me manure and I don't create my compost here. So I have to bring it from outside sources, which you'll never know what is in that compost or in the fertilizer for sure. So biodynamic agriculture sees a farm as an organism. You cannot be certified biodynamic if you don't create most of your fertilizer in your farm. We craft, manures. We call them green manures from plants that you grow within the farm to actually benefit the immune system of the plants in your garden. So, for example, let me just put it, very simply. In order for me to have a vegetable medicinal garden here at home, I got goats, I got sheep, I got chickens, I got ducks. So I actually know exactly what goes into their feed because I am going to use the manure. Not only are the animals sustaining me in many different ways through what they give me to eat, but they are also giving me manure. And that manure goes into the compost. And my compost then is going to feed the soil that will give my garden the health I need. And then that garden will, give me the certain plants that I will plant to give me enough to create my own remedies to fight pests if I have them, to give more power to my germination. But everything is crafted within the farm. We are an organism that depends upon each other. All the scraps from my garden go into a little compost or chicken bowl. My chickens get their chicken scratch of whatever I don't use. Nothing is wasted. It's really a very beautiful process, one that we have been disconnected from. And that's why we are in such a tipping point. We have become a very wasteful society. We throw away things, not knowing that, if it is organic or it is biodynamic or well-crafted, it can give back life to the soil, if we just learn how to. Biodynamic agriculture, again, uses no pesticides of any kind, not even organic. I applaud organic, but they use 240 pesticides, organic pesticides. Still, they use them. They are able to bring in fertilizers from outside the farm, and you don't know what's in there. I mean, the most pristine way to farm is the way that it was done long, long ago, and it's called biodynamic, with a few touches and a few twists here and there. It was brought on by Rudolf Steiner, and it was actually, something that is practiced in Europe, widely practiced in Europe. The agency that certifies biodynamic agriculture is called Demeter, Demeter, and they ensure that you are within those guidelines that I just spoke about. There is no outside pesticides or anything. You create everything within the farm, which allows the farmer to be intimately connected to everything that goes on, especially the product that comes out of the farm. And every farmer knows exactly what's going on into their soil. And thus for us, in order to apply that pressure, we have to ask the farmer, how did you grow this? Well, it's not sprayed, it's not this, it's not certified organic. Well, where did you create your own fertilizer in your farm? Well, I bring some from, and do you know where that comes from? Do you know if it's not sprayed? Do you know if it doesn't have any pesticides? Do you know what was it in the compost? It's very hard to really get the true answer. But, it brings me to something here, which is what inspired me to become a farmer. It is the fact that I wanted to grow clean food for my family. It is the fact that because I couldn't ensure that I knew exactly what had gone into making that squash or the carrots or the kale, I needed to grow it myself to know what went in there. And in doing that, I came and created my homestead out of my passion. A little biodynamic farm was birthed. I didn't know I was going to become a farmer, but I was so passionate and I was so fulfilled in what gave me, You know, when you start to grow that kale for the first time and you put intention in that seed, yeah, you can put intention in that seed. You can put that seed in your hand, which is a quantum tool. You know, it emits emotions. It has feelings, your body. You can put those seeds in your hand and spit your saliva on them. Let them soak in your saliva. Did you know that your saliva has your DNA? Your DNA is the whole history of who you are. You know, what your health is, what the lack of health is, what your body needs, you know, all of it. When you coat a seed, no matter where you live, you don't have to have a farm. You can just grab a nice pot, get good soil, which, by the way, they sell now biodynamic soil. You can get it in, spit on your seeds, put them in the soil, and water them every day. I invite you to actually be part of an experiment. You know, when you plant those seeds in there with your DNA, when those little things start to pop out of the soil, and when you actually come in with great expectation and those feelings of awe and wonder at seeing this thing come out, eventually it becomes this beautiful leaf. Let's just say you planted that kale, and you touch that leaf with expectation and love. You're exchanging your oil, your own skin oil. The plant receives information. It grows what you need, your need. Imagine, that's your own pharmacy right there. When I started to harvest my vegetables for the first time, there was a sense of fulfillment I haven't felt in a very long time. After a few months of growing my food and eating it, I went to the health food store to see, you know, what I needed to buy, that something I didn't grow. And what I experienced at the health food store was this tremendous kind of shut off. I couldn't decide what I wanted. Actually, I didn't want to buy anything from the grocery store. And it was so shocking. I've never felt that before. And I thought, what is this? What is this that is completely, you know, I'm like, do not want to buy anything. And I sat there looking at all the vegetables, looking very pretty, very beautiful, and it was like they weren't my vegetables. I did not grow them, but still I didn't want to eat them. So I realized in that moment that what that food at the health food store wasn't providing me was that spiritual substance that we used to get in food because the people who grew it loved that. So, yeah, we can get the vitamin E and the vitamin A out of our food, but what we're not getting anymore is spiritual food. We used to get it from the food we used to eat. I am telling you because I get it from my food. I go on business trips and I travel a lot, and within 4 or 5 days of eating somebody else's food, and my body starts to crave that spiritual substance that sustains me. So I travel with a little bag of, you know, tea, you know, my spearmint tea, and I make my cup of tea wherever I am, and it gives me that, and I'm able to just take that deep exhale. Okay, I got it, and I can continue on. But it really, truly brought me to a halt to realize that our food used to give us that. And that's why I became so passionate about teaching people to reconnect to nature. Because you're not just getting food for the body, you are getting so much more. You're getting this rekindling and all connection to nature and its intelligence. You are remembering all of these things that are in our DNA. You are beginning now to take back that nutrition, that spirituality that nature is willingly giving us despite everything we have done. So I invite you, whomever is listening out there, get a few seeds, plant them in nice soil, spit on them, touch them every day, and you tell me what you find out. It doesn't matter where you live. You can live on a condominium, you can live on an apartment roof, wherever there's a little sun, a little soil, a seed, and a little water, and intention, something will grow. I challenge you to take that and tell me.
And I also, whenever I eat, I always ask my, excuse me, angels and guides to make sure I get the highest good from the food that I am eating, and that would go double if the food I am eating has GMO in it or is being eaten out somewhere, or you don't really know where it's coming from. But since we're on the subject of food, I guess it only makes sense for me to talk about the ever debated, ever controversial subject of whether or not it's okay for humans to eat meat. Now, it has become pretty clear to me from looking at this that humans are supposed to be herbivores. We are not supposed to be omnivores. We've just become omnivores because we've been conditioned to be. And I've often mentioned an interesting fact. If you watch a lion eat its prey, like on a Discovery Channel show or something, you will notice that the lion, in addition to having to hunt very, very frequently, one reason it has to go hunting so often is because it's very picky about the parts of the animal it eats. It will not eat the muscle tissue. If you watch the lion eat, we will actually go through all sorts of trouble to tear the animal apart to make sure that it gets every edible part of the animal except for the muscle tissue. And the reason why is because muscle tissue is toxic. Now, a lot of people's eyes would go wide when they hear that, thinking, okay, well, why do we eat it? And to be like, okay, are you nuts? I don't feel poisoned from eating muscle tissue, so what are you talking about? Now, I mean, it might be a completely different situation, somewhat assert, because you got a human on one hand and a lion on the other, and different type of animal and all that. But I have heard, yes, muscle tissue does contain a lot of toxins relative to other edible parts of an animal, and also the way the animal is killed and tortured and all that has to do with how much spiritual essence has been drained out of it. I have often said the best way to kill an animal, if you're going to eat meat, you're going to kill an animal, train your animal, raise the animal on your own on your own little farm, on your own property. And the best way to kill the animal is, I like to use the of mice and men analogy. At the near the end of the book of Mice and Men, George told his friend, his dim-witted friend Lenny, to look out in the distance, and he was telling him, look out in the distance, you see that farm with all the rabbits and all that, and the last word that he mentioned was rabbits, because he knew Lenny loved rabbits, and then right after mentioning the word rabbits, he shot Lenny in the back of the head. Well, the reason he shot him in the head was to make sure other people couldn't kill him. He didn't want him to die a painful death. He wanted him to die a happy person. So he decided, I'm going to kill him myself, and he made sure he died a happy man by making sure he didn't see himself get killed. His head was turned the other way, and the last word he heard was rabbits, and he loved rabbits, so he died a happy person. The reason I bring this up is because, well, if you're going to kill an animal, I say make sure you kill the animal when it's not watching, and try to make sure the animal is in a good mood at the time you kill it so it can die happy. Some would say that's a crazy way of looking at it, but I think that's the way you're going to do it. If you're going to do it, it kind of makes sense. So this whole issue of whether or not humans should eat meat, and if you're going to eat meat, this is the best way to do it. Give your take on this controversial subject, please.
Yeah, it is a very controversial subject. And, there is so much going on there, that we can go on for a very long time. I am a clinical nutritionist, and one of the things that I remember learning long ago about it is that we eat for many reasons. We eat for health. We eat for taste. We eat, because we are hungry. And we also eat, very much programmed by culture. Where are we from? And so in order for us to really live a healthy, satisfying life, we have to cover all of those four when, say, for example, I'm talking to someone and helping them figure out what would be the best way to go into repairing certain things in their health through food. And I have to have all of that in consideration. And I would say here, it is something that, it is controversial, eating meat or not eating meat. The care of the animals, the cruelty that's out there in commercial, cattle ranches and the commercial slaughterhouses, and the many videos that many of us have seen on the web of animal cruelty. It really makes you just not want to have anything to do with killing animals. Another point that I'm going to put in here in this basket is the fact that we are evolving. Animals are evolving. And at times I feel that they're evolving faster than we are, as they are more conscious and caring of other species, not just their own, more so than sometimes we are. And I see that in my farm. I see that in the animals here in my farm. The way I relate to them is they're part of my family. And in many ways, it is my personal choice, and I get so much from that relationship with them because I give them a place of honor in what they do and how they live here, and they recognize that. And when they recognize that, they recognize me, and I recognize them. And there's a moment in which there's this very silent, cathartic exchange of love. Speaking solely from a nutritionist point of view, when somebody is ill or sick and their body's breaking down and there needs to be a repair, deep repair within the gut, about one of the only things that does it very quickly, it is eating broth. And the broth has to have bone marrow of a healthy animal. The bone marrow has minerals that leach into this magnificent broth filled with medicinal herbs and other things that can be a tonic to heal tissue in the gut. So it is not something that I would recommend to a vegetarian. We would actually then find other ways of reaching that mineral density, not quite to the level that, say, a bone marrow would do, but through other root vegetables that come from the soil that contain minerals. And the process probably would be a longer one in terms of healing. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other, and I'm not saying anything at all other than that's just a plain nutrition fact, and that something I personally have witnessed. And so, I think, I don't feel more than saying one has to follow their honor and their own integrity in regards to what you put in your body. And I believe that on some level we pay the price for whatever choices we make. The vegetarian not having enough vitamin B6 or B12, but really holding a very spiritual, solid base that this is what feeds them spiritually. Or, the meat eater who eats commercial meat and doesn't care how the animal was slaughtered or treated, and then dealing with the toxicity of that in their system, not even being aware and conscious of that. So I would say, in this case, if you are going to eat meat, if you are going to eat meat, make sure that the sources are clean, that the animals have not been given antibiotics that then go into your system, that the animal has been fed grass, not grain, because that really makes for trouble in anyone's gut, and that the animal lived a happy, healthy life, which is going to impact how you digest and process that animal inside of your body. So if you're going to eat meat, go for grass-fed beef, organic or free of antibiotics, because then you're not going to be dealing with the after effects of that. If you're not going to eat meat, make sure that you get your proteins and your amino acids from very good sources that will not also give you trouble. Most vegetarians back in the day when I was raised, I was raised as a vegetarian for 30 years of my life since I was 9. And most of the only protein that was available then, with the little information we had, was tofu. And, we would eat tofu for everything every day, every meal. And, that became a health issue and a health problem, leading to severe, issues with our nutrition. So, I would say if you're a vegetarian, then really educate yourself and, mix your food correctly. A legume and a grain make a full protein, so make sure that you have that at least once or twice a day. And that on some level you're also, finding sources for those things that are clean, no pesticides, no herbicides. Talk to the farmer, ask where the beans came from, ask where the rice came from. How was it farmed? Because it really is our choices that determine what is going to be grown and how it's going to be grown out there. The farmer wants to keep farming, and he's going to farm whatever is going to bring the revenue. And you, the public, are who is going to tell them what by the choices of you buying it or not buying it, who you are supporting and who you are not supporting. So I would say, if you're going to do something, do it well, whatever that is, whatever choice it is that you choose to make.
Well said. And let's switch subjects here, switch gears. Let's talk about Kundalini Yoga. Now, there's different types of yoga. Well, first, before we talk about specifically what Kundalini Yoga is compared to other types of yoga, for those that don't know who Yogi Bhajan was, you spent 20 years learning personally from him, and you were blessed to receive information directly from him. So give us a little history lesson here. Who was Yogi Bhajan, and what did he do?
Yogi Bhajan was an incredible man. He was my spiritual teacher, and he came to the United States, I think, in the 60s, at the time of peace and love and hippies and LSD. And he was a Kundalini Yoga master. And he came to the United States and saw the state of things as they were and said, hey, I can teach you to get high, but without drugs. And people were breaking through their consciousness at that time, big movement of psychedelics. And he pretty much said, I can help you get there, do that, but without harming your body. And so he started teaching Kundalini Yoga. And Kundalini Yoga is the yoga that actually stimulates your endocrine system, your master glands, your hypothalamus, your thalamus, your amygdala. And so it does it by you holding certain postures in certain angles and using breath as well, So with this combination, he came and radically changed that whole hippie community into a conscious community in which they could actually do the breakthrough, the consciousness breakthrough that they were craving through yoga, through Kundalini Yoga specifically. Eventually, after that, they kept asking him, well, why are you wearing a turban, or why you pray, or why you do this? And, he also was a Sikh. And a Sikh, Sikhs come from the north of Punjab in India. And they are very beautiful, courageous people that are mostly, about service to others. Sikhs don't cut their hair. They let their hair be very long, be a woman or be a man, and they keep it tidy and clean in a turban made out of usually pure cotton. And their hair is very sacred to them. God gave them that. And it's an antenna also for those yogis. The hair absorbs all of the psychic energy. And rishis, if we actually even mentioned the word rishi a long time ago, in India are those sadhus, that used to meditate in the forest. And rishis used to put their hair, they didn't cut it. They put their hair and put it in a little, hairdo on top of their head. But they didn't do that because they wanted to get it out of the way, but because the amygdala and the hypothalamus glands are right there. So when you put all your hair together, it acts as a very powerful antenna. And when you're meditating, you're harvesting all of that energy to move through your levels of consciousness. So besides being a Kundalini Yoga master, he was also a Sikh. And Sikhs believe in God. That one God, not your God, not my God, is God comes in all forms with many different names, and it's honored that way. Normally they would dress, the men have long beards, again, because they don't cut their hair. They believe that the perfection of the Creator wouldn't have created, something imperfect. So if He gave you hair, it's for some reason, so you keep it. because it's there for that a particular reason. And so he also brought in, some of the teachings that come from the Sikh history. Many of the Sikh teachers that have lived through history have been wonderful masters that have passed on, equality, human rights, service to others, always help the downtrodden. They opened the free kitchens in India. The Golden Temple in India and Amritsar is the place, pilgrimage place of Sikhs. And in that place, they serve over, I think they've reached like a tremendous amount of like 10,000 meals a day or more from this free kitchen, so anyone can enter and be fed. Equality was like, even if you were rich or poor, you sit on the floor and you're served with everyone else. Here, there's no high or low. We are all brothers and sisters, and we all have the same rights. Sikhs are quite noble people, and he brought some of those to teach, back in the 60s. He was an amazing human being. I had the pleasure to meet him when I was 9 years old, and I had the pleasure to work for him for many years and become one of the healers that used to work on him towards the end of his life. And I can tell you that this man never rested, and that people would come for help, for consults, or for counseling, or anything to help humanity. He would always move forward with that. And, despite the fact that he would be exhausted or tired, he had answered the phone, or he talked to that one more person. And he was very well known with politicians because he was very much a very humble servant, and always moving towards helping others. And so people seeked him out for that reason. And so, for many, many years, as one of his therapists there, I was very blessed to not only witness, what service is, and in the capacity that he did it. I was very inspired and learned from that. And, he knew so many different healing modalities, capacity to see beyond what we normally see beyond, here. And so, he passed down some of those things to me, and, I was able to learn Sat Nam Rasayan from him directly. Sat Nam Rasayan is a science in which you use energetic work to be able to heal or stimulate healing within a person. He was, again, a master, so the chakras, anything, he would tell you how it worked, and how to help them through yoga and meditation, how to balance them, how to adjust them. And I was very blessed, again, to have been there when he was, sharing that information. So, again, he was the most amazing teacher, and a person who truly inspired me to live in service of this beautiful humanity.
Yes, I wanted to enlighten us a bit about what the kind of yoga that he helped teach, the Kundalini Yoga. Well, first of all, for those that don't know, I guess define the word Kundalini, and then also talk about the yoga. And you did mention, by the way, that he could teach people how to get high without taking drugs. Yeah, I've heard people being able to do that, like former NFL player Ricky Williams. There was a documentary called Run, Ricky, Run, talking about how he got back to the NFL. He said he quitted the NFL to tour the world, but many people said, no, it's because he wants to smoke pot in his free time, and he got suspended because he failed drug tests. Well, he actually took up yoga, and he was able to quit smoking pot. If he can do it, I'm sure a lot of other people can do it. So, so tell us, first define Kundalini, then enlighten us on the science behind Kundalini Yoga. And for those that want to quit smoking the dope, the pot, and get high naturally with yoga, can you maybe enlighten us on some of the secrets to doing that?
Sure thing. Well, what is Kundalini Yoga? And Kundalini Yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, is considered to be the most comprehensive of yoga traditions. It combines meditation and mantra and physical exercises and breathing techniques, as I said before. And basically, Kundalini literally means the curl of the lock of the hair of the beloved. That's actually what it means. The curl of the lock of hair of the beloved. It's a poetic metaphor that pretty much alludes to the flow of energy and consciousness that exists within each of us and enables us to really merge with a universal self. And I think that's why he used it, back in the 60s, because what were people really searching for then? It was that, breaking from that old tradition, and life was more, and they needed to find it. For 1,000 years, I think my teacher used to say that the sacred science and technology was completely veiled in secrecy, and he was the first person that actually brought it to a huge, larger crowd here in the United States. Long ago, he said that this was only passed along verbally from master to chosen disciple. But he said that the times were such now that nothing should be kept secret, because we were at that tipping point. If you wanted to describe Kundalini Yoga, it's also known as the yoga of awareness. The focus is on the self-awareness and delivering the experience to your higher consciousness. And the technology, again, is the science of the mind-body, and it is meant to elevate the spirit, which has no boundaries. It is for everyone. It is universal. It is non-denominational. Because, as I said before, it really targets the endocrine system, and it targets the master glands, by doing the exercises, the breathing, the mantras, the positions. You can actually stimulate the amygdala. So when you're feeling, and I cannot speak for everyone out there, but every time we want to be able to alter our consciousness or numb it, depending on where we are, we are looking to satiate a need. In the regular consciousness, wake consciousness that we live in, is not doing it for us. So we look for something that will help us, alter that awareness or that reality. And it's either through alcohol, or it could be through smoking, other psychedelic substances or other things, that we look for that, because what we get in the daily is not just doing it for us. If you were to do Kundalini Yoga every day, let's just say for an hour as part of your discipline, or twice a week, you would probably find that you would have less stress. You would probably be more calm. You would probably be a little more in touch with what your needs are and how to fulfill them, so that maybe those choices to have that extra couple glasses of wine, or, to go and, smoke something that either elevates you or numbs you. And I would say for the people that I know, it really numbs certain people. And so I would say I invite you to try yoga, Kundalini Yoga. It helps to break habits. It really allows you, again, to have that clarity of what you really, truly need and how you can access it without harming the body.
Thank you very much. I guess we'll skip on to another subject now. Only got about 7 minutes left until I'm going to start taking calls, and I see there is one person here in the queue, Greg Mason 3, with a question mark next to his name, so I guess that means he wants to speak. He'll actually be second in line after area code 563, but we got enough time for another subject here. So I guess we'll start talking about some of the things that you I don't want to make this show a sales pitch. You do sell things on your site, and you're more than welcome to do that. Nothing wrong with making a little money off things that benefit the consciousness of humanity. And there's so many different things to talk about here. But I guess here's something. The 8 yogic petals. If we can't cover this all in 7 minutes, that's fine. We'll just do it after the calls. But this whole thing about 8 yogic petals, what is the significance behind that than the number 8? Because 8, that's a pretty mystic number, a lot of people would say, because it looks like the infinity sign.
Right. In one of those evenings where I was with Yogi Bhajan, he actually, in his ability to see beyond time and space, told me to write down these formulas. And at that time, I had no idea I was going to become a clinical aromatherapist. It was through many years later, I found the formulas at the height of my passion with aromatherapy. But at that time, he gave me 8 formulas. And he told me at that time that we store our habits, our patterns, and our traumas and our fears in this gland called the amygdala. And that in order for us to break the pattern, we need to engage not only, the aroma of a plant, which reaches through the brain and it goes right straight into the amygdala because of the olfactory system, but you can actually engage the power of the mind, or the power of projection, as he would put it, by repeating, say, an affirmation. At the same time, you were inhaling this beautiful floral bouquet of blends that was already changing the chemistry of your brain. And then you would actually use the power of mantra. In Kundalini Yoga, there's a lot of mantras, and they're not there because they sound pretty, but because each of them, pronounced correctly, the tongue hits the upper palate in your mouth at certain meridian points, and it stimulates your brain waves. So it changes and alters your consciousness as you're repeating it. So here you have a beautiful blend of exotic flowers reaching into your brain, changing the chemistry, going directly into the amygdala where we store the patterns, you working with a mental affirmation which creates this momentous, energetic, vibrational resonance, and then you're repeating a mantra which generates heat. And so in many ways, he said that this would be one of the most powerful ways for people to be able to break habits, and do it in a way that wouldn't harm themselves, and do it in a way that was very quick and very fast. So the 8 yogic petals, were given to me, oh my God, over 20 years ago. And I can tell you this, I didn't know I was going to be a farmer. I didn't know I was going to be an aromatherapist. But for some reason, he must have given me this because he knew that at some point or another they would come in and I would be able to present them to the public to make us a difference, to be of service. And I've got amazing testimonials on how these blends work for people. I am not saying in any way, don't go to your psychotherapist or stop taking your medication. I'm saying nature is giving us an opportunity to do it in a different way, one that is healthier. So you're not just going to stop one and start the other. You can add it to what already you're doing, and it will be more powerful.
Thank you very much. And I guess, you know what, I'll start taking the calls now. So, area code 563, you are on the air. What's your name, where you're from, what's your question, or are you just listening?
Thanks for taking my call. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Take care now. Thank you for being in my audience.
Thanks.
Okay. Greg Mason, 3, you are on the air. What's your name, where you're from, what's your question?
Hello, this is Greg from Pennsylvania. And,
how you doing?
Good. And my question involves, nutrition, the mind, and meditation. And I have tried to experiment with being a vegetarian off and on for a while. And just recently, I think I found one of the things I was doing wrong. And my question was, in the work with yoga and meditation, how much are we missing it when it comes to like the ingredients of ghee and grass-fed butter, and if that plays an important role on the mind because of, and how important is it to yoga?
Thanks for the question. It is important and it isn't important. I would say that the most important thing is that you're practicing yoga, that you are actually crafting and creating the time for you to dedicate it to yourself and to your higher self. Grass-fed butter is wonderful. It means that the cows have gone through a process of being cared for, and there's a certain integrity and honor in bringing such a pure product to the table. And if you can, access that, then I would say don't hesitate to do that. What it does that kind of have an effect in your mind and body? All has an effect in your mind and body. Everything around you does. The food that you eat, the thoughts that you think, the habits you engage with, the anxieties you choose to bring into your life, they all will have an effect in you. But I think most importantly here is I have to applaud you. If you are doing yoga, you are choosing to take time. You're choosing to make time, and you're choosing to do it differently. And I think that in and of itself is going to bring you a tremendous amount of ease and peace, and things will just start making a different sense for you. So good for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I took like a 24-day water fast this year, and at the end of it, I was really kind of bent out of shape on how I would return to normal eating. And what happened was I come across this book, The Bulletproof Diet, and I was reading about fasting on a drink made from grass-fed butter and coconut oil mostly. And as I was meditating on it, I kept seeing all these clear glass containers. I have some mason jars at home that were cloudy, and I've always had a problem getting the cloudiness out. But it was though that this, training your body to drink fat would clear the mind. So I was just wondering, because I know for me it's been new, but yet I didn't know if there was any history in yogic traditions about that type of thing. So, but thank you.
Yeah, no, I think everything has an impact on you, and if you are getting a very pure product, it is going to have a very positive impact in you. And I would say always do everything, in a balanced manner. There's so many diets out there, and there's so many, pitches for this, that, and the other, and one must really eat for health. And I'm talking from personal experience. When I was raised, very young into the yoga and meditation, I was a gung-ho yogini, at very early on. And I went on fasts that a child my age shouldn't have or couldn't have, but I did. It was my capacity and my spirit who wanted to have an experience that actually allowed me to finish them. However, a very young age, fasting on water and then breaking it with honey and lemon and then going back into eating, again, I can relate to what you're saying. I needed to have more education. My body was still growing. And for many people who want to go on very, very big diets like this to have a spiritual experience and a physical cleansing, they are meant to do that if your body is healthy. If your body is not healthy and you need to heal it, then going on a fast like that can bring on a tremendous amount of issues, that could impair your health. So I do, share that with all of you out there who are listening. These diets are great if you're already healthy and you can actually do them. But I would say the world we're living in actually saying it so loud, we have to live in balance. If we go off that balance, we will have repercussions. So as long as you're healthy, then you can actually deal with, going back to eating again and not having an upheaval every time that you eat food because the body is not used to it or because there were enough toxins that you released that you didn't get rid of that are still, there. So I would say everything in moderation these days. And again, those big cleansing diets really are meant for the very healthy people that are not having health issues.
Okay, thank you. That's been very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in, Greg, and I do hope you can take this advice to heart and hope it does you well. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Call in anytime. Later. Okay, Ylara. Did I pronounce your name right there? Ylara.
Yeah, try with an E. Ylara.
Ylara. Okay.
There you are.
I'll get it right next time, if there is a next time. Okay, in regards to the stuff you sell, and shame on anybody who says you're doing this for the money, they should get a nice slap in the face because everybody needs to make a living somehow. But all right, enough of that. I'm digressing. Let's first start with Aromatherapy, the science behind aromatherapy, and I guess I'll give you the floor to talk about some of the key products that you sell and what they are designed to do. And hey, if anybody wants to go to your site and buy it, by all means do so. I'm sure it's definitely worth the money.
Well, thanks. As I said before through this very long talk, I became a homesteader because I wanted clean food. It became a biodynamic farm because there was an opportunity to get certified. And before I knew it, I was crafting these beautiful remedies coming from nature. There was never my intention to do this. It really was guided, and it was very an organic process. Do I keep my farm or do I move away? And I certainly did not want to let my farm go. So there was a great need to be able to bring out all of what I had been crafting for my family only to bring it to serve the public and to be able for me to keep my farm. So it was never really, I want to make a buck from you. It's like, I want to keep my farm. What can I offer you that I know will work, in your life, so that you can support me in keeping my farm and doing more service. And so there's a new paradigm of doing business that is really emerging with conscious people. And so I'm living that paradigm now. We craft beautiful products that are free from pesticides. Everything is planted with intention, and everything is harvested with intention. Every single bottle that is sold in my website and that's been crafted goes with intention and goes with prayer that it may support those who need it the most in the most gentle and loving way. So, I have an aromatherapy company. I make creams and I make salves and I make mists, and I source from other farmers like myself, when I cannot make it. So you are dealing with a new paradigm of business here, one that puts your money into what you want to support and you want to see in the world. You're not dealing with a large corporation. So, we have a range of products that, support the immune system. We have a range of products that support the emotional system. We have beautiful creams that we make here from the beeswax of our bees. We do not treat our bees with anything. And so you are dealing with a very pristine, pure product, tremendous intention. For example, we craft this beautiful relief balm, and it is a balm made with the tobacco we grow here in our farm. It is tobacco that doesn't contain nicotine, and we have found that the tobacco helps to ease muscle spasms and pains and aches. And it's made with the mugwort that we grow here on the farm, and the hollyhocks and plantain. And all of a sudden, you have this beautiful product that when you put it on within less than a minute, it helps to ease the pain in your leg, in your neck, in your back. And like this product, we have many of them. We have some that reduce anxiety and uplift the heart, and that's called the gold rose lavender cream that we have. It has colloidal gold in it. So many people tell me, how is this cream going to help my anxiety? When I'm tired after a big show or an event, I said, listen, just put it on around your heart, put it on a little bit on your forehead, go walk around, and if you feel better, come back. And I think that is the best way to actually allow someone to experience where their money is going to go from. And I tell you, those people come back and buy too, and they become some of my best customers that I have. The same goes with, say, the allergy release. Right now is time for, a lot of the conifer trees are letting their seeds go, and people are experiencing a great deal of allergies. We make and craft a blend that you put it under the nose, you put it behind the ears, and literally within 15 minutes, the inflammation goes down, you start to breathe better, your ears, your eyes start to stop being so itchy or watery within 15 minutes. And it's all natural. It doesn't have side effects. It is pure. And so products like this is what we offer to the public. We are of service. We are a small little farm. I am the person that crafts them, and it really goes out with intention. Our website is floweroflifeblends.com, and you can find an array of things. And if you can't find something there, or you don't even know where to start, shoot me an email. I am always available, and I reply very quickly to help people find what would support them best. You can shoot me an email at Ylara@floweroflifeblends.com, and, tell me what is it that you want support in, and I'll be able to help you find it.
Thank you. And now I'd like to take a more botanical approach here by going one by one through the plant list. Well, I don't know if this is all the plants. It says by plant and then it says full plant ingredient list, but let's go through what we have here. Frankincense, geranium, jasmine, lavender, lemon, rose, Palo Santo, and patchouli. Something like that. So let's take this one by one. We don't have to end the show talking about all these. If there's time for another subject, we'll talk about something else. But take as long as you need to tell us about what each of these are and what they do in regards to improving health and also enhancing spiritual awareness. So frankincense, what does that do?
Sure. I mean, as you said, the list is incredibly big. There is, for example, we can start with rose. Rose is the highest frequency of any living substance known to man, measured in megahertz. What's megahertz is the tension between 2 points. And so basically here, rose is, in my opinion, humble opinion, it is the flower of the new paradigm we are striving to move towards. Why? Because rose, and we're talking about organic rose or wild-crafted rose, because rose is the most heavily sprayed with pesticide of commercial crops, because it's the one that gets the most pests, and it is one of the most expensive oils you can buy out there. So when you put a commercial rose oil on your skin, you're also putting in a tremendous amount of pesticides. Just imagine that it takes 60 roses to make 1 drop of oil. And so imagine a whole, 20 acres of roses sprayed with pesticide. And if you put in 2-3 drops of oil on your skin, you're putting all of that too in there. So again, your choices impact how we do things. Choose organic, choose well-crafted, choose biodynamic, which is the only stuff we carry on our website and the plants that we work with. So here we go back to rose. Rose has been known to actually allow someone to feel vulnerable without feeling overwhelmed. Now, that's really big. Imagine, everyone out there who's listening to me, imagine you do not feel overwhelmed by feeling vulnerable. It would allow you to feel more who you are. You're being able to express who you are without having the anxiety or the pressure to be something you're not. So rose supports us in actually holding that space more easily, to have an open heart. The rose is also great antibacterial, antifungal. It elevates your mood. It really allows for that energy to go higher, and it is one of those flowers that you can see in stories, even biblical stories, and you can actually hear, when you hear those stories of enlightened masters and they pass, everybody smells roses in the room. Why is that they say that about roses? Or the Holy Mother, when they feel the presence of something holy, or a mother, the mother of all, the room smells like roses. I mean, these are common things that we continue to hear when there's all these very surreal experiences, that the room smells like flowers. So flowers have that capacity to actually bring us closer to that cosmic universal energy. Flowers, and I would say, the rose, geranium, neroli, anything that has a flower that's aromatic is going to change your consciousness. So many of these flowers are used in blends to support the emotional well-being, your emotional body. We can talk about herbs, the herby stuff like marjoram. Marjoram is a very humble little, kitchen herb. Is deeply, aromatic, camphoric. It's great for colds or flus or to strengthen the immune system. But one of the spiritual qualities of marjoram is that it brings a lot of light and it allows one to feel courageous when you need it. I have this beautiful blend. It's called Mary, and it has rose, marjoram, and it has sage. Sage has a lot of qualities. We're talking about the white sage. Most people, relate it to the Native Americans and how they use in ceremony to clear away negative spirits, to clear the energetics of a room. And, when you put the rose and when you put the marjoram and when you put the sage, you're bringing in those frequencies of, restoring the heart, being vulnerable, of not feeling overwhelmed, of clearing whatever is there, keeping you from feeling your true self, energies, entities, whatever they may be, and then infusing you with that light and courage that the marjoram offers, to step every day out there and continue to work on yourself. So, these are some of the plants and the flowers and the herbs that we work in the blends. Many people ask me, well, why don't you have just singles? And I said, because it's like having one violin band or having a whole symphony playing for you. So a blend is like a whole symphony where one oil leaves off, another one takes on, and a single is powerful, but more is just going to be a more broad spectrum in so many ways. I can tell you a little bit about frankincense. One of my favorite, resins. Frankincense, grows in the Sahara, in the desert, in the Oman desert, in the Saudi Arabia region, Oman, Yemen. There it's very dry, it's very hot. And most people don't realize that a frankincense bush has to be up over 100 years in order for it to be tapped so that the resin drips, and then you can actually make it into an oil or a cream or whatever you're going to do with it. 100 years before it can actually give you the resin that's therapeutic. And it gets no water. They're in the desert. Yet frankincense is actually wonderful for hydrating the skin. Frankincense, if you actually think about the bush drinking sunlight all day long, and remember we're talking hot, once the resin is distilled, it's as if you were distilling sunlight. So it's warm but cooling. And frankincense, it really affects the crown chakra, the top of our head. It clears headaches. It clears that burden that sometimes we feel if something just jumped on you and you feel like, the frankincense will clear it. That's why they use it in churches. It clears things and it brings a sense of well-being and being lifted. It's fantastic for cuts and bruises. It's an antiseptic. It's antifungal, antibacterial. But mostly on a spiritual level, it really brings the anxiety down. It helps people in their grieving. It helps people when they're crossing, on the deathbed. And frankincense brings that ease and releases the fear and allows the person crossing just really, feeling at ease with the light. So frankincense is very special. There's like 9 types of frankincense out there. The most therapeutic is the Oman, which is the most expensive. It comes from the Oman region, and that whole area belongs to the Sultan of Oman. And, so it's quite an amazing essential oil. And it's one that we sell single, and I sell it like that because it has so many powerful therapeutic benefits. We can talk about thyme oil. One of my favorites. I love the herb and I love the oil. It is one of the most humble, again, kitchen herbs. But when you have an infection, a cold, a flu, or you feel like you're coming down with something, it is amazing clearing that stuff out. And the thyme, linalool, there's many chemotypes of thyme, but the linalool is one that is very easy to use even in children. It's one that I put in our children's blend for strengthening the immune system. And so, I can definitely go on and on. One of the mists that we sell at our place is called a seasonal booster, and the seasonal booster is a combination of 5 types of eucalyptus, 5 types with the thyme oil. Now that is just going to totally clean any kind of weird bug. And if you're a teacher or you deal with a lot of people every day, it's a good one just to have spraying around yourself so that you are bringing immunity into a room and you're bringing immunity into a space, and it's less easy to catch something that's hanging out in the air. There is also, I would say there is the blend is called I Am Present. And this blend has jasmine. Jasmine is just a delicious fragrance that's very exotic and very rich. Jasmine, it's not very well known for it's an anti-anxiety. But if you are a speaker or you are someone who is afraid in speaking in crowds, but you have to, jasmine can bring down that anxiety. And it calms and it cools and it soothes the central nervous system and it uplifts. It's a blend that we make and helps people to remember where they left their keys and supports good memory and it supports a calm mood. So like that, we have very, very many. If there are any questions from the audience in regards to a particular flower or plant that they want to know about, or a question in regards to how they can support something, I'd be happy to answer it.
Talk a little bit more about some of the plants you got here. Lemons. That's one thing we take for granted in life, but some people don't know if they should consider it a food or whether they should consider it a supplement or a healing thing of sorts, or maybe a little bit of both. So, there's many different types of lemons. When you uses for lemon, when you put it on like a fish, it enhances the flavor of the fish. That's when you think of it as a food, but it's also used for healing the throat and all. So I guess maybe this is preaching to the choir, but hey, could you enlighten us a little bit about what lemons do specifically in regards to the work you do and the stuff you sell?
Yeah, lemon is incredible. Lemon detoxes the liver, in a cup of warm water in the morning, it is alkaline. Most of our diet these days in our society is very acidic, thus creating a lot of issues. And so lemon actually alkalinizes the blood. You can have a little squeezed lemon in a glass of water and you can drink it and it alkalizes you right away. One of the things one has to watch out for lemon is the fact that it definitely destroys the enamel of the teeth. So if you're going to drink your lemon water every day, use a straw, and that would take care of that. Lemon is uplifting. Any kind of citrus is going to have an uplifting, effect on us. Lemon reduces fatigue, reduces anxiety. It promotes relaxation. And it is one of the ones you can find on WebMed and its benefits and the research that they've done on it, and it is fantastic for depression. Very well researched, very well known. It is amazing in relieving depression. Should I tell you to stop taking your medication and do lemon? No. I would say do both. And then, of course, consult with your doctor. But, lemon doesn't have side effects. And in aromatherapy, one of the things we need to have, present is the fact that you need a lot of lemons to make the oil. So you're dealing with a very concentrated presence of the plant material. And here, the lemon oil is done by cold extraction. So basically, the oil is present in the rind of the lemons. And even if you can't buy the oil and you have lemons, don't toss away the skin. Just squeeze the skin and smell it. Deeply inhale. Each nostril takes it to a different part of the brain. Deeply inhale that oil of the lemon. There is tremendous benefits of it. But mostly I would say if you are blue or someone that's blue and depressed, give them the gift of an essential oil that has lemon. We have a blend that's called I Am Uplifted, and its main purpose is to help those who are feeling depressed, and its main ingredient is lemon.
Thank you. Another product that I noticed that you sell here is insect repellents. Now, this is a little bit controversial, one might say, because when it comes to trying to become a nature lover, there's a debate as to which bugs are okay to kill and which ones aren't. Now, if you see like a cricket or a praying mantis in your house, I saw a praying mantis in my house recently when I walked in the door, and I saw it there, and I'm wondering how in the hell did it get in there? There's no way it could have got. Well, I know that there is definitely some spiritual significance behind that. Maybe I should consult an Akashic Records reader and find out what that is. But I didn't want it to be in the house, so I put it in a cup and I chucked it outside. I didn't want to kill it, because there's some like certain bugs you don't want to kill, and like centipedes, those 100-leg critters. A lot of people find those bugs to be repulsive just looking at them, and they instantly want to kill them, and they can bite you, even though they're not. It's not a poisonous bite by any means. But a lot of people say that when you kill a centipede, you're making it easier for a lot of pesky bugs like ants and all to invade your house, because centipedes, they eat those bugs and they can be used as a pest control bug of sorts. And when it comes to insect repellent, I mean, mosquitoes, they say, fine, there's nothing wrong with killing mosquitoes, but some other bugs, you really don't want to kill them, because when you kill them, you're not becoming one with nature. But then again, one would say, well, when you're killing mosquitoes, you're not really being one with nature. Of course, anytime you kill a bug, you're resolving karma in some way, if that makes sense. But the whole idea of selling insect repellent and which bugs it's designed to repel, and for that matter, which bugs are okay to kill and which it's not okay to kill, could you give your take on this debatable subject?
Well, there's a term that I grew up with. It's called ahimsa, and so it's not violence. You don't kill. Very hard to do if you live in a farm setting, and you have, a lot of things eating the garden. I think that when we live in harmony with each other and we have the capacity to really emanate that, we would not have to deal with pests, mosquitoes, insect repellents, or things like that. And we're moving towards that capacity to really live in harmony within our environment and our animals. And I think biodynamic agriculture is a great example, and even have to begin to realize what that is, for me anyway. Mosquito repellent, actually, yes. I don't like mosquito bites, and I don't kill them. I repel them. That's why they're called mosquito repellents. We did craft a mosquito repellent at some point here in our offerings, and the point was not to kill or to be toxic. It was to repel. Scent has the capacity to attract or repel, and so in many ways, we can approach things on that level too. Sometimes I don't go and clean the cobwebs in the windows. Why? Because the spiders have to eat, and they like to eat the flies. And at a certain point in the farm here during the summer, there's a lot of them, and I don't like them in the house. And so, I let the cobwebs grow, and I don't interfere, and I don't have as many flies. And one can take the approach of letting nature take its course, managing it, and not interfering too much, and understanding what harmony is within all the species and how that works. I think that is probably the most important, in that way.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a while to find the mute button there, but I have a question in the chat room from Sean Cohen. She says, could you ask the guest if there is a blend for metabolism because I have hypothyroidism, or is there also one for adrenal fatigue? Could you answer that, please, for her?
Sure. I would say as a nutritionist, I always like to hear, okay, so are you sure that you have, hypothyroidism? Have you been tested? And if you have adrenal fatigue, which is something I have specialized in, is basically most people who really truly have adrenal fatigue, it has come from a trauma. Our adrenals are like our shock absorbents in the body. And, when we have had severe trauma when we were young or older, and we put it away and we forget about it and we go about our lives like nothing has happened, then there is some event that has to do with a great deal of anxiety or stress that triggers that trauma, and then before you know it, you can't get out of bed. You're tired when you wake up. Your body hurts. Your muscles ache. Every little part of you hurts. Even if you get 12 hours of sleep, you feel worse the next day. That's adrenal fatigue. That's your adrenals are shot. There's many ways to support that through diet, through lifestyle, changing the choices, doing some meditation and yoga, addressing the issue, eating better. And yes, I do have, I have a line of blends that support the adrenals, and I do work and do personal consults and craft personal blends for very specific issues, one being thyroid. But those would have to be done with having enough background of the individual needs of the person. But the adrenals, if you do have adrenal fatigue and you have suffered trauma before and all of a sudden in the recent past you were just triggered and can't get out of bed, most likely it has to do with adrenals. There's 2 blends, that I can recommend. It's adrenal support acute and adrenal long term, depending on where you are in the cycle of your adrenals. This blend support, resetting your adrenals. The testimonials that come back have been beautiful and just very grateful that these blends are serving people with adrenal issues. If you have had, been tested and say you have Hashimoto's, then there is some very, unique personal blends that can be crafted for those personal needs, taking the biography of the person and what's really going on. So there are blends that can assist and support you through that if you have Hashimoto's, yes. And again, they would have to be crafted personally, taking all the details, of the person.
Thank you very much. And Sean asked me to put up the website for you. It's floweroflifeblends.com. I'll just put a link there in the chat in just a couple seconds. But just so you know, there are 15 minutes and 10 seconds left on the live feed. If you have to go past 8 o'clock to finish speaking a thought or something, that's okay. It's just that people have to call into the show to hear you at that point. But I do want to try to keep this show to 2 hours. So let's talk about chakra activation, because that's actually, before we do that, ancient healing technology like Sat Nam Rasayan. Maybe you did mention this in passing earlier in the interview, but if you didn't, could you refresh my memory and everybody else's memories? And then after that, we'll talk about chakra activation. So Sat Nam Rasayan, an ancient healing technology. What exactly is that?
Right. As I mentioned to you guys before, my teacher came from India as a master of Kundalini Yoga, and he actually had one of the things that he taught was Sat Nam Rasayan. Sat Nam Rasayan is an energetic. It's an energetic, meaning you get into this meditative state and you shift the frequency of the vibration of your cells to bring about healing. The best way I can illuminate it is, I don't know if you guys remember that video game called Pac-Man, and basically, this little Pac-Man would go and eat those little cells and would get bigger. And Sat Nam Rasayan is much like that. Is you just go, you don't have to take the stuff out to heal. You don't have to transform it. You basically go in and change the vibration of the energetic that's causing the problem, and you transform her and elevate it. So it is a very old, ancient way. It works with meditation and chanting, and it really is about the state, your inner state as a person who is doing the work with somebody else and holding that energetic state so that they entrain in it. Is very powerful.
Thank you. And now for the chakra activation. Now, one controversial area of chakra work is whether or not we actually need chakras other than the heart chakra. Now, we've been hearing recently that there are more than 7 chakras, and the other chakras are being activated in our body. But then again, there are some people who assert there's really no point in activating those other chakras, because if you just go with the heart chakra, then you can't go wrong in life. But others would say, okay, if you just go with the heart chakra, yeah, you're not going to go wrong. But then again, what kind of a life is that? You're going to get bored. It gets kind of boring if you're not using some of the other chakras. I mean, some would debate whether or not the heart chakra is any more or less important than the other chakras, because you hate to put like chakras in level of importance, but some people, when teaching meditations, I've heard one meditation where you envision first your root chakra going into your heart, then your crown chakra going into your heart, then your sacral chakra going to the heart, then your third eye chakra going to the heart, and then the solar plexus chakra going into the heart, and then you envision the throat chakra going into the heart. The fact that you would put all those chakras, envision them traveling into the heart, would lead one to think, okay, the heart is the king of all chakras, but to say that one chakra is better than the other, they would assert is misleading. So the argument over whether or not a chakra, the heart chakra, is any more or less better than the others, and whether or not we ought to use chakras other than the heart, what's your take on this debatable subject, these subjects?
Well, yeah, there's so many schools of thought about what a chakra is, how many we have, and how do we activate and how do we do them. The way I learned it from my teacher, through different modalities that he was very kind to teach me, were pretty much, the chakras rotate and vibrate at a certain, a certain rate. Some of the chakras move slower than others, or not at all, or can get stuck in that movement, causing health problems and expressed in different emotional states for us. And so how I learned to work with them is through a yogic tapping. And you tap certain chakras in a circular manner for a very specific count, pausing ever so lightly every time you reach a certain number, and activating each one of them to actually move at the speed that they were meant to. And I think it's different for every human being depending on where they are in their evolution. But this particular technique he taught me was to just bring back balance to whatever rhythm the body needed to take, and to be able to move them, starting at the bottom, first chakra, and finishing at the crown. And when I have done that kind of work with people, it has been very cathartic. It has been very deep. They go very deep. They feel very heightened. They feel very expanded, and they feel like it's reached, a kind of equilibrium, on many levels. So that is a little bit of that chakra activation that I learned with my teacher long, long ago, and one that I, on some level, if you are learning or you're experiencing or you're practicing that and you're witnessing how certain vibratory rates work, one learns to actually sense them and see them and recognize them in nature. And in many ways, some of these background things that I have with my teacher have been so key in understanding plant intelligence, how plants vibrate at certain rates, and why is it that when you smell the rose, you feel your heart expand, because the rate is at that rate of the heart. And working again with the plants individually to craft remedies and beautiful offerings work at that vibratory rate to bring back balance. And that's why so many people, are surprised, say, for example, when they come to an event and they open a blend or they put something on and they feel something they haven't felt before with a product that's similar to ours. It's because there's a vibratory rate that is very awake in what we're doing here at the farm. It goes from the moment that we plant it to the moment we harvest it to the consciousness that's pretty much a stimulus to what we do here. We live that life. We're not just packaging something for you to buy. We are stepped into, we live in it. We are birthing it, we're part of it, we're co-creating with nature. And so, that's also part of what goes into, all of these offerings from the farm.
Thank you very much. We got time for one more subject. Doesn't really talk too much on your site about how much you're familiar with grounding and how grounding can benefit you. But the reason I want to bring this up is because the weather is getting a lot warmer now, and everybody knows that when the weather gets warmer, it's kind of harder to ground yourself. That goes double in the winter when there's snow on the ground, because you can't touch the ground even with your hands when there's snow all over the place. So I don't know your expertise on this subject, but for those that want to learn some grounding techniques in like cold weather season, especially in the winter when there's snow and ice on the ground and you can't actually touch the ground to ground yourself, do you have any advice for that?
Yes, we need to remember we are fifth dimensional beings. We don't have to actually, travel to convey love to someone on the other side of the planet. That we are connected by an incredible, powerful, energetic web. The trees are right there. Wherever you are, there's going to be nature. And wherever nature is, there's going to be an exudation, a kind of emanation from nature around you. If you actually turn your awareness and your consciousness towards the nature that is around you, whether it's dormant or whether it's cold or whether it's snow, whether it's sun or it's raining, and you actually quiet your mind for a few minutes and deeply breathe it in, deeply exhale whatever you no longer need out, you'll have the connection right there. It's pretty much everywhere. We just need to remember it.
Right, and also the idea of getting nutrients and essential stuff from nature. When I was at the Mount Shasta conference that I met you at during the fire ceremonies, during the campfire, one of the people there talked about breathing in the nutrients from nature and the elements and such. So if you don't get all 90 essential nutrients that your body needs some level of, you could just get it in from asking for it in nature, especially in a spiritual setting like that, a campfire, when everybody's in a state of beneficial ritual. But question, if you're doing something like that, one might say, well, you got to be careful because you might be letting harmful entities into you. So, I mean, one say, okay, we'll just ask your spirit guides and guardian angels to protect you. But even if you do that, if you willfully allow things to come into you, then even your angels and guides may not be able to protect you from negative entities if you yourself at will are asking stuff to come into you. So for those that want to feed off nature to try to get some of the nutrients that they may not be able to get from food and or supplements, if they choose to supplement, any advice on how to prevent negative entities and energies from affecting you aside from just asking your angels and guides to protect you?
Well, yeah, that's a very big question. I would say that intention, what we want, we manifest, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. It is important to know your sacred space, which is your magnetic field. That's your sacred space. It walks with you wherever you go. And many a times we can actually, this is something I learned a long time ago through sacred geometry and then projection, studies. So basically what you do is when you wake up in the morning, you feel your sacred space and you invoke honor, integrity, appreciation, and love within that sacred space, your bubble per se, and you fill that sacred space before you even go out the door with all of that which has already been infused inside of you. So you're literally invoking honor, appreciation, love, gratitude. And when you fill your magnetic field with these things thoroughly, you also put in an affirmation that whether it's conscious or unconscious, you will not allow any energies from the outside to penetrate your magnetic field without your conscious permission. It's beautiful how our field works because whether you remember or forget, throughout the day, that intention has been placed in your magnetic field. And it will bring you to attention when something is trying to get in, and you will remember it.
Thank you for the very good advice there. I'm sure it will work for those that try it. Well, there isn't really any time for any more questions, so I guess I'll bring this show to an end, and I will do so by telling you, Ylara, the same thing that I tell all of my guests. Ylara, you are indeed a fascinating individual, even though you may not be known by a lot of people. I'm glad I asked you and all the other vendors to come on my show because, like I said, vendors can teach you a lot of things that many of the speakers probably at conferences can't just teach you. And while I have no doubt that I could certainly do another show with you, I regret to say that since I am on a mission of sorts to get as many different people on my show as possible before giving any one specific guest double dips, as I feel that that is the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way of doing a radio show, I probably will not be asking you to come on my show again, but please understand that's only because I need to give lots of other fascinating individuals the chance to have some glory on my radio show. But I have no doubt that you will become very more well-known because of this interview. I promise you I will do whatever I can to spread this interview far and wide and make sure a lot of people hear it. It will get uploaded to YouTube on my YouTube channel. And I noticed that you did actually put a link for it on your website. If you have like a channel or something that you want to upload this to, feel free to do it. You don't even have to just copy and paste the link to my YouTube channel or this Blog Talk Radio interview. You can download it yourself and upload it. By all means, do that. So it was a pleasure having you on. I wish you luck. I wish you good sales. Hope you make a lot of money because stuff you sell is certainly beneficial. It's certainly worth it. And good luck on all your future endeavors, Ylara.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And, this was definitely fun. And thank you for what you're doing. And I wish you the best doing it.
Wish you the best, too. Take care. Namaste.
Bye. Namaste.
Folks, that is the end of this show. I will actually be doing 2 shows within the next week. This Friday, I will have R. Keith Andrews on the show. Inner Voice Foundation is the organization he works for. He is an extraterrestrial UFO person of sorts. I think he was recommended to me by Ed Baker, one of my previous guests. This Friday, October 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We're about to guest next Wednesday after that. So R. Keith Andrews, talk about ETs, UFOs, and other things this upcoming Friday, 2 days from now, from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on October 16th. So that is the end of this show, everybody. Namaste. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness. This is Andrew Fisher signing off.